There are moments in an investigation when thought must give way to action. Holmes, I had often observed, was never content to admire a puzzle from afar, once its direction had been revealed. He meant to follow it. The watches lay arranged upon the table where he had left them, their quiet ticking now carrying a strange urgency. Holmes stood before them, fastening his coat with deliberate precision. "Come, Watson," said he without turning. "We have lingered here long enough." "You know where they are leading?" I asked. Holmes reached for his hat. "I know where they begin," he replied. "And that, for the present, is sufficient." Our visitor rose quickly from his chair. "You intend to follow this path?" Holmes glanced toward him. "My dear sir, I have no intention of doing anything else." Within minutes we were descending the familiar steps of Baker Street and stepping out into the fog-laden evening. The air was damp and cold, the glow of the gas lamps softened by the mist which clung to every surface. A carriage waited at the curb. Holmes gave the driver a brief instruction, too low for me to hear, and we set off at once. For some time he said nothing. He held one of the watches in his hand, studying it as though it were a compass rather than a timepiece. "You observe, Watson," he said at last, "that each variation corresponds not merely to a number, but to a direction. You believe it is guiding us even now?" Holmes's eyes remained fixed upon the watch. "Not guiding precisely." He paused. "Confirming." The carriage slowed as we turned into a narrower street, where the buildings leaned closer together and the light grew dimmer still. At length, Holmes struck the roof with his cane. "Here," he said. We stepped down onto the wet pavement. Before us stood a row of aging structures, their facades worn by time and neglect. Holmes moved forward without hesitation. "This is the place," he said quietly. "How can you be certain?" I asked. Holmes held up the watch. "Because, my dear Watson, it has not changed." The watchmaker looked from one of us to the other. "I see nothing unusual," he said. Holmes allowed himself a faint smile. "Nor should you." He stepped toward a narrow doorway set between two buildings. It was unmarked, its wood darkened by years of weather. Holmes reached out and pressed his hand lightly against it. For a moment, nothing happened. Then, with a soft and deliberate motion, the door shifted inward. The man drew in a sharp breath. "You knew it would open?" Holmes glanced back at him. I suspected it would. The interior beyond was dim, lit only by the faintest suggestion of light deeper within. Holmes stepped inside without hesitation. I followed at once, with our companion close behind. The air within was still and cool, carrying the faint scent of oil and metal. As my eyes adjusted, I began to make out shapes along the walls. Shelves, tools, fragments of intricate machinery, and watches, dozens of them, all silent, all still. Holmes moved slowly through the room, his gaze passing over each object with intense concentration. "This," he said at last, "is where they were made." The watchmaker stared in disbelief. "A workshop?" Holmes nodded. "Yes, but more than that." He stopped beside a long workbench and rested his hand upon its surface. "This is the origin of the cipher." I felt a chill settle over me. "Then whoever created those watches is not merely a craftsman," Holmes interrupted. "He is an architect of intention." At that moment, a faint sound broke the silence. A single, deliberate click. Holmes's head turned slightly. "You heard it," I whispered. Holmes's expression sharpened. "Yes." The sound came again. Click. Not from the watches upon the table, but from deeper within the room. Holmes straightened slowly. "My dear Watson." His voice was quiet now. We are no longer alone.